Hi folks, I think I'm live. Jenny here, also known as new-to-uke New York on some parts of the internet, and I am back, or maybe this is the first time you've seen me, with a one-take tutorial. This is my public ukulele tutorial series. I am often teaching either a song that I have arranged on ukulele or a skill or technique. And last year, about this time actually, I started what I hoped would be a series with a video that was a beginner ukulele toolkit video. It was supposed to be replicating a first hour-long lesson that I might give for an adult if we were meeting for the first time to work on ukulele from a beginner angle, someone very new to ukulele. And this was something that I thought I could follow up with more videos in that vein, that I could make a beginner ukulele toolkit kind of series. But I haven't made any since, and I haven't gotten a lot of feedback on that video. Got a little bit. I got a nice comment. Thank you. But I think that I want to make another video in that series, so that's what I'm here to do today. A quick word about me if you have not seen my content before. I do have a lot of free content on YouTube. I've been making covers and arrangements and writing songs and doing tutorials, and I also lead 4 free play-along jams every month online, 2 that are more beginner friendly and 2 that are more mixed level, between Zoom and YouTube, and I love doing those. I have a lot of fun with them, and I have songbooks that I add songs to pretty frequently so that we can play what you're interested in playing as well as what I'm interested in playing. So if you haven't checked one of those out, please check out the free posts on my Patreon page, because you can get all the information for those public play-alongs. They are truly free. The songbook is free. The posts are free. You do not have to be a paid member of my Patreon. You can even just join Patreon at the free level if you want to get email updates when I post public stuff. But even if you don't, please come to one of those jams. I'd love to see you in the chat or on the screen when we're on Zoom. So when I am doing all of these things for ukulele, all these various things that I do, I also always have to give a shout out of thanks to my Patreon patrons who do support me monetarily every month. I really appreciate it. Ukulele is not my full-time paying gig. I wish that it was, but it is a great side project for me, and the more Patreon patron support I have, the more I'm able to do each month with ukulele, and it really is my favorite thing to do. So hopefully more to come, and thank you very much to my current and past and future patrons. It really does mean a lot to me that I get to keep learning and sharing on ukulele. So what am I here to do today? I'm here to give you another beginner angle technique video that can be thought of as one of these beginner toolkit videos. And here I'm actually going to one of my private students in New York City where I live for a little bit of inspiration, because I have a private student who is, you know, a beginner 2 or maybe a little bit more advanced, but wanted to do some beginner level exercises as part of their regular practice. And I have a recent video call that has practice tips and tricks. I'll link to it in the description box. So for people who are looking to build a practice routine or thinking about what they want to do when they sit down to practice, it's fine if you're not, it's fine to be more informal. But for those who are interested, I made a video with some tips and tricks on practicing. And my student wanted to do some scales and wanted to also do some ear training. And so I created a PDF handout for that, which you can get for free on Patreon in the post that I create for this particular video, which will be linked again in the description box below. I created this PDF and then thought, well, what else can I do with this? I can use this as a beginner lesson on YouTube. So we're going to look at beginner scales, beginner ear training, which is also a finger picking exercise that you can do if you're interested. So for some people this won't be the right video to watch, and I've got lots of other content you can check out, and I have a whole spreadsheet of different tutorials. I think I have well over 100 full-length tutorials by now, and a lot of mini tutorials for my Patreon patrons as well. So check that out if you're looking for something different than this. But today we're going to talk about scales and a little bit about ear training and also finger picking practice from a more beginner angle. So let's do it. Let's dive in. And I have this PDF that I'm going to share on the screen sometimes, but I'm not going to share it on the screen all the time. So if you want to grab it from the Patreon post, please feel free. So let's start out by talking about scales. Scales are a building block of melody, and you don't need to know a lot of musical theory and also explicitly learn some music theory that helps us become better players if we're interested in that. So it doesn't have to be everybody's goal. But when we start looking at scales, There's a vast, really wide world out there of scales, and there are teachers who are doing whole scale series. It's really cool. I've done some with some of them, but we're going to keep it very, very simple, very, very basic. In general, when we're talking about scales, these are meaningful in terms of singing as well as in playing, and so that's part of why it can be useful as a vocal exercise, as an ear training exercise, and also for finger picking and learning our fretboard. So there are notes in each scale, and we're going to start out just by looking at major scales, which are often the simplest kinds of scales. There's a whole math behind how we get the notes in a scale that I'm not going to go into here, but let me know. If you want to dig deeper into scales, I can give you some great recommendations. But the exercise that I came up with for my student that I wanted to share with you all as something you could add to practice is pretty cool, because there is a movable scale shape that we can use on the ukulele fretboard that allows us to practice multiple different major scales. So let me show you the handout, and let's talk quickly about tab. Now, I have some videos on reading tab, especially for Patreon patrons, that go more in depth on how to read tabs. If you've never seen notation like this, this might be a little bit of a steep learning curve here just for a few seconds. But in general, when we're looking at tab, we are looking at what number fret we are on each individual particular string. So the tab is sometimes going to show you things like rhythm. This tab does not. This tab is only showing you the 4 strings. Each one gets a line, and they're labeled there at the front on the left, G, C, E, A. So it's like you're looking at your fretboard from the G up to the A. So if you turned the ukulele towards you, that's the same view you would be getting as what's shown on the tab there. So that is what we're looking at, each string, and then the numbers on the line are showing you what note you would be pressing, but in terms of which fret you'd be on. So if it says 0, you would not have your left hand pressing down any frets. 0 means open string. This is on the C string here, so you would just pluck a C string with no finger on any fret. Next to it, it says 2, right? And so there we would press the second fret space right next to the wire, the second wire on the neck of the ukulele on the C string. And if it's sounding a little clunky, maybe you're kind of on the fret wire, you may need to back off it. If it's sounding flat, you may be too far back the other way. You can kind of start to train your ear this way too, what actually sounds in tune. But so just looking at those first 2 notes on this C major scale tabbed out for you on the page, you have got open C, and then you've got second fret C. Now, in the first video that I made in this series, the Beginner Ukulele Toolkit, we talked about home bass, and we talked about fingers to use for different frets, which you can always deviate from, but it's a nice place to start. In general, when playing scales, you can think this way too, and then again, we'll deviate when we need to. If you think about first fret being played with your index finger, no matter what string you're on, middle finger usually playing the second fret, ring finger usually playing the 3rd fret, and pinky usually playing the 4th fret. That's a nice place to start. And then, as I said, we may need to deviate. So let's explore this together. Going back to the handout, if you're playing, so the open string, obviously you don't need any fingers on the fretboard yet, but if you're going to play C 2nd fret, I'm going to use my middle finger for that. And then I'm going to move to going left to right. The tab moves left to right. In this case, all these notes are played separately. There's no notes that are lined up right underneath them. And we are playing notes, not chords. Chords would have more than one note in them, usually 3+, but not always. But here we are just playing single notes at a time. So we start with the open C, which is your C note, then 2nd fret of the C, which is D. And then we want to play an E note, which is our E string. Now, there are other E's. We could play an E on the C string, but let's not get too deep into that yet. We're going to play an open E, and then with our index finger, 1st fret of E, and then with our ring finger, 3rd fret of E. So you see how you're not playing the 2nd fret of E? We're actually going up a whole step. Each fret that you move from, like if I went from the 1st fret to the 2nd fret, or when I go from open fret to 1st fret, that's a half step. So 2 half steps equal a whole. There's a little music theory for you, going from 1st fret to 3rd fret is a whole step. Then we are going up to the A string open. Now, can you find this note on your E string? If you go on your E string from the 3rd fret we were just on, move it up 1 fret. Does that sound the same as open A? Not quite. Move it up another fret, now you're on the 5th fret of E, and then play your A. That is also an A. So we could go from the 3rd fret of E to the 5th fret of E, but this is a movable scale shape, so we don't want to do that in this case. We want to go 3rd fret E to open A. And we're playing an A note. Now we're going to do another whole step, so we're doing 2nd fret of A, and I'm going to play it with my middle finger. And then I am going to play the 3rd fret of A with my ring finger. So, O2, O1, 0, 2, that's 8 notes. That's our scale. That's our C scale. It starts on C, on the C string open. It ends on C, A, 3rd fret. Can you hear how those are the same note, just one is higher than the other? This is a good thing to do for ear training too, is to try to identify what we call an octave. To the same note, an octave apart. Scales will begin and end on the same note often when you're learning them. That's often how they're tabbed out or written out for you. So now if those don't sound like the same note, like I can hear a little bit, it's a little bit higher here. You can adjust where you put your finger in the fret wire, or you can retune using a clip-on tuner or whatever method of tuning you're using. And I talked about tuning in the first video in this series. So sometimes you find that the intonation of your fretboard's actually a little off, and no matter how you tune, as you move up higher in the scales, you may get some notes that sound a little off. We can adjust that a little bit with where we put our finger on the fret, but sometimes we have some ukuleles that just never hold a tune particularly well as we get up closer and closer to the sound hole. Here though, we're staying around the first, few frets, so it's not so bad even on ukuleles that don't necessarily hold that tuning all that well up the neck. So now we've got 8 notes for this scale. This is a C scale, and this is a great place to start as a beginner, just learning this scale and just being able to play it smoothly and try it quickly, not at first, but work up to doing it more quickly. So let's do it slowly. Let's do this whole scale from open C to 3rd fret A. Oops, there it is. We'll do it in an 8 count, but a slow 8 count. So maybe we'll actually do it in a 16 count. So I'm going to count 1, 2 on each of our notes to give you time to think about how you're going to move to the next one. So we'll count 1, 2, 1, 2, and we'll move on every one beat. So that'll be like this. Let's try it. Oh, silent gone past. All right, so let's try this whole scale. Try to keep your hand in home base if you can. 1st fret, index finger, etc. Ooh. All right. 1, 2, 1, 2. Open, 2, 2, 2. Open, 2, 1, 2. 3, 2. Open, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2. You can practice that as many times as you need to. You can use the timestamp to go back in and play it with me as many times as you want to. You can use the gear icon on the YouTube video to make it slower or faster. You want to keep working on, you could practice with a metronome, and if you Google the word metronome, you'll actually get a free metronome right on your Google homepage. You can do this until it feels fluid to you and you're able to kind of do it without looking at your fretboard. That does not need to be your goal on day one, but you can work on it till that is coming more smoothly, and that is a C note. Now you can add a layer to this, add a skill to this by singing the notes as you play them, and I've suggested here you sing them on na, but frankly you could do it on anything that was comfortable for you, or you could do na, 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 You've then sung an octave. And if you're doing it slowly, you can listen. Am I really matching the note on my fretboard? This can help with people who think their singing's a little bit weaker or who are having trouble matching pitches. If that's going too high for you, you can also try doing it down the octave. So you can try starting to hear what even lower notes might sound like. Like, for example, that high C, la. If you're singing it down the octave, you would end here, la. So you could try, I can't sing that very low, so I can't sing that. but you could sing up to this C note instead. Now, speaking of which, when you get that C major scale flowing nicely, then the next thing I would do is do it backwards, which is why there's a reverse scale right underneath it, so that you can practice the fluidity of picking 3, 2, 0, 3, 1, open, 2, open. I wasn't ready. When you're doing that, it's really good again to start. You can start out by looking at your fretboard, but you want to eventually get to the point where you can do it fluidly without looking at the fretboard, because when you're changing strings, then you can do both. Go up and then back. You can, combine them into one longer exercise. And there's not a goal to be able to do this as fast as possible, but if you're able to do it slowly, you can work on fine-tuning it. If you're able to do it quickly, it's going to work on finger dexterity, which is why it's also good as a practice exercise. And if you can memorize it, that's lovely too, so that you don't even have to look at the page when you're doing it, and you kind of know where you're going. An additional layer to this that might not be right for everyone right when you're a beginner is to then make this into your movable scale shape. So here's what it says on the page, and then I'm going to take it off the page and show it to you bigger. You can move this scale anywhere on the fretboard and make it into other major scales by barring all your strings as a movable 0 fret or nut, or by using a capo. And I have a capo near me. Some of my friends call these capos or capos, which is also okay. I call them capos. So here's what I mean by that, the movable scale. I'm going to take it off the screen, so have it next to you if that's helpful to you. When we are playing the scale as I just played it, fast or slow, this nut, this white on my ukulele bar, where the strings meet the fretboard, that is our 0 fret. So our first fret space is right next to it, and our first fret wire is next to that. So the 0 fret is something we can think about moving with our fingers when we want to move a chord, and I have a video on movable chord shapes, or when we want to move something like this particular scale shape. Now there's other ways to play a C scale that would not necessarily be movable, but this one is. So instead of, I can't move this nut, right? It's stuck in place. But what I can do is use my index finger as a nut by barring across all 4 strings, or I can use a capo instead of my index finger. Some people have them, some people don't, and that can become a new 0 fret. In fact, that's how capos work. Wherever I put the capo right up next to that fret wire, that's going to become my new nut. So if I put it right next to the first fret wire, this back here it's still holding strings, but it's not doing the work of making the tones anymore. The capo has become the thing that keeps my tones correct. So if I use my capo, I can, relative to the capo, instead of counting fret spaces from back here, I'm counting it from the capo, I can do that same scale in that same shape and be playing a C scale shape, but now I'm actually a half step up, so I'm actually playing a C sharp scale. So if I play the same shape, I've moved everything a half step up. Remember, each fret movement is a half step, and one of the notes I just played are actually the C sharp rather than the C. If I moved it a whole step up, or 2 half steps, then I'm playing a D scale. Can you hear how it's different? So that note that I'm ending on should be a D. Now if we take the capo off, we can actually check that by playing a D, the 5th fret of our A string. That's the same note. So we just ended on a D. So you can use that capo to shift around, and if you know your notes in order, you can figure out what scale am I doing. Am I doing it with the nut where it's a C, C sharp, then D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G. I could go as high up as fretboard I have. So what if you don't have a capo, or what if you don't want to use the capo? Because you don't have to have one, you may not have one, or you may not like using them. Sometimes they can be hard to play around. You can actually use your finger as the capo. So if I put my finger across all of the strings, then I'm using that as my capo. Now I do have to then adjust how I play this, because I can no longer use my index finger on a fret. So I'm not going to be able to use our home bass that we talked about before, where I have one finger per fret. So what I'm probably going to do here is use my middle finger for my first and second frets relative to my bar that I've just made. And then I can use my ring finger as the 3. You can do it differently. You could do, you know, your pinky finger, maybe that. Let's try that. Let's try it that way. Middle finger on the first fret, our new first fret, ring finger on the new second fret, and pinky on the new third fret. We don't use a 4th fret in this particular scale shape, so we don't need another finger. So here, it's going to take a little getting used to because it is now, we've switched the fingers that we were doing before. It's going to go open, 2, but that's with my ring finger now. Open, 1, 3, open, 2, 3. So that may be harder to play because your index finger is strong and you're using it as the bar and these other fingers are a little weaker. So that's another thing we can practice, is just trying to get that down so these strings don't buzz. And then when we feel good about it, we can do it backwards. See, that one buzzes, so I need to press a little harder my bar there on the open E. Now, what I'm saying about this being a movable shape is that anywhere I put my finger, I could play that shape next to it. Oops. That's going to be a scale, but it will not be a C scale anymore. That's your formula for playing the scale, and you would need to count up to see what scale you were doing. So for example, I just put my finger on the 5th fret. So if it is C when it's back here, then it's C sharp, D, D sharp, E. That's an F scale. So that should be an F note, and we can test that out by going back and playing an F. First fret of the E string is an F. Now, if you don't know your notes in order, that is going to make this part of it harder, knowing what you're playing, but you can still practice the shapes. And you know, if you want me to do another lesson about the music theory behind what notes they are, for example, there's no E sharp, it just goes straight from E to F, and that can be confusing for beginners who are new to music theory, for sure. But if you know anything about piano, keyboard, if you've ever played another musical instrument besides ukulele, it's the same notes in the run. So you don't need to know the names of them to play these shapes and to move the scale around and to find the notes that are harmonious within that scale. So that can just be an exercise for you. As I said, you don't need to know the notes. You can just play those shapes as a finger warm-up. And also it will start training your ear, and if you choose to sing along, that's another layer on top of that will be ear tuning, as well as could be a good vocal exercise. So the other thing I want to show you is 2 other ear training exercises that can be more about finding notes on your fretboard, starting to hear what goes together. This can be useful even if you're not ever planning on doing a ton of instrumental, what we call finger style, finger picking playing. Even if you're not planning on soloing while somebody else plays chords. But some people are planning on it, and this can be a good building block for that too. This is also good for singers as well, to train your ear. So let's look at our next exercise. So this first ear training arpeggio, let me put it on the screen, that I created for my student. Sorry. Why the share is moved, the button on my Zoom. Oh, because I'm not looking at my Zoom screen. There it is. Okay. The next exercise we're going to do is the ear training arpeggio, the first one on this 2-page handout. So this is another one that you could do just as a finger exercise. You don't need to do the singing along part of it. It's just if you want to do a little bit more vocal matching to notes, or if you're trying to use it as a vocal warm-up, you could do it that way too. And this is another one that might go too high for you and you might need to drop it down the octave. But you know, people have different voices, so see how it works. You could go to a certain point and then stop singing if it becomes too high. Don't hurt your voice trying to sing super high notes if they're not working for your particular range. Also, this can be done on high or low G tuning until we get to the second page where there are some that will only work with low G notes. So let's start with the first page. These first few arpeggios, which is a broken chord. When we play the individual notes of a chord, that's an arpeggio. And then we're actually going to play here arpeggio, and then we're going to play the chord as well. Sometimes there will be an additional note and added up in here as well. Some of these will not be only the notes of the chord, but will be related notes in the scale as well. So for example, we're going to start out by playing an arpeggio and then a C chord. You see there's a third fret on the E string that is not in our C chord when we play C, but it is in the C scale. So we're adding that note that's in the scale even though we're not playing it in the chord. So that's something that is interesting about these arpeggio exercises as well. So let's try this just with the picking. And again, you can use your home bass here, one finger per string, because per fret rather, because we don't need to move a bar around with our index finger. So let's try. It's going to have 8 counts, and we're going to end, the 8th count is going to be on the chord. So each time we're going to end with the chord. You can use whatever fingering you want if you don't like the one finger per fret, but try the one finger per fret, see how it works for you. So let's try it not fast. Let's try the first line. We'll go from the C, and then we'll go to a C sharp. So start with the C. 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's hard, right? You have to move the fingers around on your strings and make sure on the right string and the right fret, and then some of these chord shapes may not be familiar to you. That C sharp or D flat chord, and I put them both in the bracket because that's the same thing. C sharp and D flat are two different music theory names depending on what key you're in. It'll be called one or the other for the same shape, the same chord, the same notes put together, make C sharp or D flat. So this is a case where you may need to take each one of these individually. Some of these are not going to be familiar shapes to you, and they may not be the way that you usually play the chord as a beginner. So let's look at the next one. The D is played when you look ahead to where we're going to strum the whole chord. It's played 2, 2, 2, 5. Well, that's using notes from the D scale, but that's not how most of us beginners play D. So you could play your easier beginner D there that is 2, 2, 2, 0, but this is giving you more notes in the scale that are up the neck, and it's related to the notes that we're playing in arpeggio, and it would work better as a vocal exercise if we were using this shape. So doing the notes that come before us, starting with this second fret C, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now you could also pause before that D. That would be a fine vocal or ear training exercise too. You could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 3, then strum. So if you want to keep it in rhythm with a metronome, you don't have to rush right to that next chord. You could give yourself a few beats. And that's actually probably how we would do it as a vocal exercise if I were doing this, say, in a choir. And again, we can sing it on na. There are other vowels and consonant combinations you could do, but let's just start with na because it's simple and a good place to start. Let's go back to the first line and do the C because that's the easiest. You can match your tone with what you're plucking on the string, na. Then play the next one, na. Check it. The next one you can pluck first and then sing if that's helpful, na. Now your third fret on the A, na. Now we're coming back down, na, 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 and then play through your chord. So you can do that as slowly as I just did it, or even slower. You do not have to do this fast, especially if you're trying to match vocal notes. I wouldn't just try to do it as fast as possible. If you're doing it for finger picking purposes, you might be trying to do it at different speeds and try to get it faster, or really be working on improving your tone. There's different ways you can use these exercises. But this is giving you a broken chord arpeggio and then the chord that those notes come from following behind. So let's just slowly play through them, and then when it starts to get vocally too high for you, then try dropping down the octave if you can. I'll see if there's one that I can demonstrate that on when it gets not too low for me to go the other end. All right, so let's try here with the C, starting, and we're just going to keep going through these, but not fast. I'm going to count though. I'm going to go na 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 2 3 strum 2 3. So not super rigid in the timing, but I'm not going to rush right into that chord. So let's try it. And you can come back to this as many times as you need to. So let's try. 1 2 1 2. 1 na 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 na. You can sing it there or not. Na 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 2 3. Now let's try another next one. Na 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 2 3 2. Might be getting too high for you. Na 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 na. I didn't hit it. Sometimes I hit that note, sometimes I don't. So let's try dropping down the octave. Na is where the note is on the E. Na. I can barely hit that. Na. I'm going to do it though. Na 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 na. And now your chord. That's the E chord. Na 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 2 3. That's F chord. Now here's where, if you wanted to keep going, you would want to use your low G, because we need some low notes, because it's getting too high for most people to sing unless you're a really great range soprano. Most people are going to want to drop lower, at least by this point if you hadn't already, which is why I was trying to demonstrate that as well. On my low G tuning, I've got a few extra notes on my G string because it's lower than my C string. So, la. Now I can start down here when I'm doing, or na, sorry, I was doing la there for a second. When you're going up and down, we can go 1 2 1 2. Na 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 na. And then strum your G. 2 3. Na 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 2 3. Now I've given you a sort of easier G sharp A flat here so that you can do it as a beginner. So put your third fret, index and middle on C and A, your ring finger on the 4th fret of E, and don't play your G string. That's what the X means there. So that simplifies your G sharp A flat chord a little bit because it is a tricky chord. And then we go to the next one. Na 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 na, and do A 2 3. Na 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 na, and the dreaded B flat. 2 1 more. Na 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 na, and the same shape but up. B 2 3. If you're not yet playing B flat and B, you can also skip the chords and just do the single notes. That would work too. So that is something that you can work on for all of these reasons we just talked about. For your training, for a vocal exercise, to stretch your higher or lower range, to practice going up or down the octave, and also to make your picked notes clean, and even to play some chords, some of which might be kind of tricky for you, and to play them cleanly. So the name of the game is not to go as fast as possible, and if it helps you to have a metronome, that is a really good idea. But this is something you can incorporate into your ukulele practice if you choose to, no requirement. Finally, I want to show you the second ear training exercise here, which is just a different sort of an arpeggio, and it does not have the chords played at the end of it. So this again could be on high or low G. So let me switch back to my high G instrument here. These do not use the G string at all. So most of the time you're just on the C and E string, and then on a couple of them you're on the E and A string. So 2 strings at a time for each of these. One is the rhythm of it. Again, it does not need to go that fast. And again, we can do it on na, 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 and just try to match the notes on your fretboard. Again, if it's easier for you not to do it simultaneously, but to pluck and then sing, you can do that. Na, 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 and then do the next one. Na, 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 na. I tried to go too far. I looked up at the camera rather than looking down at my page. Next one. Na, 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 etc. I don't think I need to do every single one with you, but you get the picture. This will either be something that interests you or something that definitely does not interest you, and either way is fine. Not a requirement to add these to your practice. But I wanted to give you some examples of things that you can use, whether you're working on your tab reading, your picking, your singing, your ear training, what notes are on the fretboard, those sorts of things. All right, so let me know if you want more exercises like this. I could do another video with some more exercises in this same vein. Or if you are looking for some help in learning the notes on your fretboard, or if there's another part of music theory you want to learn, or if you'd like to go back to the beginner toolkit of just adding some chords and working through some chord progressions, or we could also go a different route and go more into strumming and picking patterns for beginners. I am very flexible on these, so thought I'd try this as an experiment to see if it interested anybody, and we can certainly do more or no more of this as people desire. So let me know what you're interested in. Thanks for checking out this experiment with me, and I hope you're having fun on your ukulele. That's what it's all about, right? Let me take that off the screen so I'm a little bit bigger. It really is about finding what elements are interesting you at any given moment, and you do not need to have a goal for yourself to be able to do these exercises or to learn anything about music theory, but if it's fun for you, then why not share some ways that we can dig into that a little bit deeper. Still hopefully at a fairly beginner-friendly level, even though some of those chord shapes were a little more advanced. All right, so see you on the internet. More to come. Let me know what you would like tutorials on next. We can go back to song tutorials as well. And I'm looking forward to our upcoming ukulele play-alongs and just learning more with you. Thanks, folks. See you on the internet. Bye.